Good evening, everyone. Welcome back. Before we begin tonight's special, please go ahead and make sure to like and comment on this video as well as subscribe to my channel, as I will be coming out with more interesting videos. Now, tonight's special deals with teaching English, so if you are a potential teacher, current teacher, or former teacher, you will be interested in this video. Now, a disclaimer before we begin is that this is basically a video editorial. It's like an opinion editorial. It's my opinions sharing my experiences with teaching English here in Vietnam. Now, we're going to go ahead and begin. So, I began to teach English in 2019 after I got my TESOL certificate from the American TESOL Institute, 120 hours. My first English center paid me only 380,000 dong an hour and supplied me with TAs that could not communicate with me. So, needless to say, after a few months of doing that, I decided to go ahead and look for work elsewhere. I found another English center to work with at the same time I was working with that one, and I was making pretty good money for a while. Right up until the point where the English centers decided to let me go at the same time because I was asking too many questions about this, that, and the other. I need help with this. I need help with that. I need TAs that know how to do their job, this, that, and the other. So instead of providing me with what I needed, they just let me go. And I go, okay, whatever. So I move on. I go and find another English center at the end of 2019 that goes ahead and takes me on. And they go ahead and give me some schools in Ton Bin district. Now I go ahead and catch a illness. I don't know what it was to this day. The doctor said it was either 50% tuberculosis or 50% something else. Nobody knows. So what happened was I was out for 3 weeks. And when I come back, my schedule's completely gone. They gave my schedule to somebody else. So they only offered me like one or two classes once a week. And I said, no, I'm not doing that anymore. So, because it wasn't worth it, I have a family to support. I have my two elderly parents in law, my wife, my daughter, and myself, and all that on just my salary. Not to mention food, utilities, giving my parents some money for rent, paying for stuff for my daughter, paying some for some stuff for my wife and myself. Yeah, all that stuff on just my salary isn't really going to cut it. Now, so they went ahead and stopped talking to me, and I found work elsewhere for a little bit. But then this English center comes back and talks to me again at the end of 2020. They go ahead and tell me, we want you to come and work for us again. And I go, okay. So they go ahead and send me out. And after that, it was just a nightmare because of the fact that they sent me out to this school in, well, it was in Huon Hoc Mon, but it's really, really, really far out there near Long An province. Now, on a good day from my house in Quan Moi High District 12, it will take me about 50 minutes to get to this particular school. No, I'm not going to name the school, just like I'm not going to name the English Center because I don't want to have to deal with copyrights and lawsuits and stuff like that. So I'll just go ahead and leave names out of it. Anywho, so they wanted me to go all the way out to this school. Remember, on a good day, it's 50 minutes to get there. On a bad day, it takes 2 hours. Now, bad days can include things like funerals, traffic accidents, bad weather, or a combination thereof. Now, the fourth case, which is very uncommon, is animals, like, cows being in the road and stuff like that. And you can't move because of cows, stuff like that, or pigs. That's very rare, but it does happen from time to time. Anyways, so on a good day, we're going to take about 50 minutes to get there. And imagine how much fuel you're using to get out there. Now, from here to there, if I remember rightly, it's well over, I think it's like 20, 22 kilometers. Yeah, 20 to 22 kilometers each way each day. Imagine doing that particular schedule and you only make about 15 to 18 hours a week. How would you feel about working for that English center? Knowing you would have to go all the way out there every single day, wasting all that fuel with a family to support, you're not making any money. Yeah, you're not going to like it either. So essentially, after that, I just went ahead and told the English Center, you know what? This ain't worth it. So I went ahead and decided to go do something else. Now, the other English centers I worked for, let's just say they weren't as bad as this particular one was because this English center mistreated me so much that I actually learned the labor code because of them. I was actually inspired to learn the labor code of Vietnam because of how badly this English center treated me. Now, the labor code of Vietnam, that's actually a series that I'm going to go ahead and do later on because it's another thing that I'm passionate about is teaching people their rights under the laws. Now, the thing is the fact that after this English center, I learned the labor code. So the English centers I dealt with after that, they didn't know what to do. They were like, oh, this foreigner knows these laws. Oh no, what are we going to do? So at first they tried to tell me that, oh well, those labor laws only apply to locals. They don't apply to Vietnamese. They don't apply to foreign citizens. And I go, ha ha ha. Are you sure about that? And I go ahead and point out to them in the labor code where it says that foreigners are protected under the labor code. And they're like, oh well, we're going to give you a company fine for this, that, and the other. And I point to the part in the labor code where it says you can't do that. And I go, no, you're not. And then they just look at me. And I go, yeah, I know my rights. You're not going to steal from me. You're not going to cheat me in any way. You're going to actually treat me with some dignity and some respect. See, the problem is with this English center, that's what inspired me to learn the labor code, is that it got me to thinking. English teachers here in Vietnam in general are treated like clowns, entertainers. That's it. Now, as far as private schools, international schools, and such, I wouldn't really know because I don't have experience in that area. But I do have experience in public schools, and I can tell you for a fact that public school teachers are basically instructed to be clowns. We're instructed to use a lot of play, a lot of games, a lot of this and that, and it's terrible because the kids don't learn that way. In my opinion, the kids do not learn by games and this and that. They learn by actual instruction. Now, the way I taught was super boring, but that's how I like to teach. That's just how I did. I did straight book lessons only. I go ahead and mix in a little bit of my knowledge with a little bit of what the book said, plus the audio files and this and that, and then that's it. Kids learn, that's that. Now, another thing I noticed, beginning with that bad English center, continuing on, was the fact that here in Vietnam, the public schools are not interested in knowing how the students are actually doing. They're only interested in manufactured 10 scores, like they only want to see 10 scores for students. They don't want to see an 8 or a 6 or a 0. They want to see perfect score of 10 for absolute best behavior, even though the students were being rotten. Now, I know I'm on YouTube, and yes, I know that I live in Vietnam specifically, so I'm not allowed to say or do certain things, and I'm okay with that. So just bear that in mind when I describe or say certain things. Anyways, so when I was given a test to give to the students, they would say, you're not allowed to give them below a 5. You're not allowed to give them below this. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, so if we're not allowed to give them below a certain score, what's the point in testing them in the first place? I mean, honestly, what's the point? Because if you're not allowed to grade them based on how they actually do, why not just go ahead and take 5 minutes, fill out the entire paper with fake grades, and then just say, okay, I'm done. Because, they say, you must actually give the test. And I go, what's the point in giving the test if the results are already determined? They couldn't answer that. So every English center since then that I taught for, I asked the same question. I was like, why do I have to give this test if the scores are already determined? I had kids in 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade that couldn't even answer basic questions. Yeah, could not answer basic questions. All they could say was, hi, how are you? My name is, and that's it. That's it. Because of the fact that there isn't enough actual instruction. You see what I mean? Yeah, they want to say that, oh, well, play games. That's the way to teach kids. No, no. You have to be strict. In my opinion, you have to be strict. Because if you're too lenient, if all you do is play games, kids learn nothing. But yeah, at the same time, if you're too strict, the kids don't learn either. So you have to find a happy medium. I understand that. But the problem is the fact that when the kids don't want to do the work, when the kids refuse to behave themselves, when your English center refuses to give you the support that you need via giving you TAs that actually know how to do their job and academic coordinators that actually know how to respond to emergencies in a very timely fashion, then you can actually be a great English teacher. If you have proper support structure, you can be a great English teacher. But as long as they want to go ahead and give you, TAs that can't speak English and TAs that don't want to do their job, yeah. Because I've always said that in the classroom, it starts with the TA. If you have a bad TA, it doesn't matter how well the teacher does, the teacher's still going to look bad. However, if you have a TA that actually does her job and does it right, then you're going to have an English teacher that actually does know how to do their job, that can do it effectively. Now, in my opinion, someday when I go and get my own English center, I'm not going to have any Vietnamese English teachers, no Vietnamese TA. I may have a couple of Vietnamese office staff, but that's about it. Because if you want kids to learn English, it has to be a 100% English environment. However, if you have, like in the setting of public schools, the kids, they don't speak English outside of the classroom at all. They don't listen to English music. They don't watch movies in English. They don't watch anime in English. They don't do none of that. They only learn English during the time that they are at school. So when I was an English teacher, I tried to give my students extra time to do their assignment. This way, they could go ahead and do whatever they wanted afterwards because I knew that that was the only time that they were going to learn. So, moving on. So, the last English center I worked for before I decided to call it quits, actually, the second to last one before I decided to call it quits for good, was, no, technically third. But, anyways, this one also operated out of Hue and Hawk Bone. Now, this center, again, I'm not going to name, but if you're watching this, you know who you are. That's all I'm going to say. If you're watching this, you know who you are. The only positive thing about this specific English center was the fact they gave me a schedule that never changed. It never changed because I had the exact same classes at the exact same schools every week. The only thing that changed was the lessons and such. That's it. Same thing for the test. You're not allowed to give below a 5 no matter how badly they do, so they can automatically pass on to the next grade, even though they don't deserve it, because if they were given actual tests, they would not have passed. So it was the same thing, and I got fed up with this English center because of the fact that the director of this English center decided to treat me like garbage. And after I learned the labor code, I go, ha ha ha, no, you're not going to do that to me. And essentially, needless to say, we had a bit of an issue and I stopped working. So she wanted to hold my salary hostage and said, unless I sign some, illegal document that's not going to hold up in court, I'm not going to go and get my last salary. So after talking to a lawyer and considering my options, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and sign this, even though I know it's not legal. I'm going to grab my money and I'm going to go. So what I did was I went ahead and wrote on that paper signed under T, D, and C, which meant signed under threat, duress, and coercion, which duress and coercion, I guess, are the same thing. But essentially it meant that I was signing this against my will so I could receive my money. And the fact that, well, if you know who you are, if you're watching this, you should also know the fact that a lot of other people know how bad you are too. And I'm not going to tell you how many, but a lot of people know exactly who you are. And a lot of people know exactly how evil you are. That's the reason why you've been seeing that. You've been seeing a drop off in the amount of English teachers that have been applying for your center. Yeah, that's me. See, when you do bad, people know about it. Think about Apex. Apex has been one of the English centers that's been in Vietnam, well, practically forever. The problem here is that they are my problem, but on a more massive scale. See, they went ahead and stole money from students, they stole money from teachers, they stole money from excuse me. They stole money from staff, they stole money from everybody. Everybody. They haven't paid they haven't paid salaries to their staff in forever, and they haven't reimbursed parents because their students not being able to study. They haven't been able to pay their teachers. They haven't been able to do anything, and yet they're still allowed to operate. Nobody knows why. They still get to post profit, and yet they can't pay their teachers. They can't reimburse students. They can't do anything. But Apex in of itself is a separate issue and something else we're going to talk about later on. But to continue on with this particular conversation, see, after that English center, I really began to evaluate whether or not I wanted to teach English because of the fact that the whole system is rotten. When I went and signed that paper from that English center, the boss was basically gloating over me. Like, I got you now, ha ha, I can make you do what I want, ha ha ha. And I'm thinking to myself, if only you knew about the ace I have up my sleeve, you wouldn't be gloating. My ace up my sleeve is a secret, but this secret is something that keeps me happy because of the fact that, well, if you decide to go ahead and make problems for me, all I have to do is use this trump card that I have, and the backlash socially against you would be a lot worse than it would be for me. So, yeah, that's why I'm happy. Anyways, so this English center made me really reevaluate whether or not I wanted to teach English anymore because I wanted to teach English, but at the same time, I didn't want to work for corrupted centers because these corrupted centers are happily stealing money from foreigners. This director actually admitted to it to me. She happily steals money from foreigners that are desperate for work. She charges them for work permits and TRC cards, even though that's illegal. She's supposed to do that herself. She's supposed to pay for that herself as the director of the English Center. Yep, work permits, TRC cards, background check, health check, pass, like your pictures and stuff like that. Anything that's required for you to be able to teach English legally in Vietnam, your company has to pay for that, not you. Now, the thing is the fact that she brags about making teachers pay for this and that. She brags about stealing money from teachers because she gives them illegal company fines, even though under the labor code it says that fines cannot be used as a form of punishment in the workplace. So they steal from teachers. They're happy that they steal from teachers. And it's centers like that that need to get shut down. Plain and simple. Centers like that need to be shut down. Because centers like that is what brings down the noble profession of teaching English. See, two sayings that I'm reminded of are simple. First saying goes, the strength of a nation is rooted in the integrity of the home. Think about how that relates to teaching English. If you have an English center that has high standards, high quality, then it will be reflected not only in the lessons they teach, but in their staff that work there as well. However, if you have an English center that is rotten and corrupted, it will also be reflected by how poorly the lessons are being taught, how badly the staff is being treated, and yeah. So if you have a good English center, it makes things a lot better than if you have a bad English center. The other one is that if a family is united, all affairs will prosper. See, with this saying is the fact that with most English centers, especially the corrupted ones, they don't work together. They keep their employees fighting against each other to pit them against each other so that they don't focus on trying to go after the boss or something like that. But it's just one of those things. Like I said, the English centers, they're corrupted. They're no good. They need to go. Now, in my opinion, these English centers do not support Uncle Ho's dream because Uncle Ho's dream is of a strong, prosperous, and united Vietnam. However, these corrupted centers are more like the country sellers that the liberators warned us about in the song Giải phóng miền Nam, Liberate the South. because the role of the liberators was to destroy the country sellers. Yes. And these English centers, years later, are the country sellers because of the fact they are not teaching according to what Uncle Ho wanted. They are not using the best quality teachers. They're not giving the best lessons, and they are not giving the best quality to the parents because of the fact that if you want to instruct and teach the next generation, you have to do it right and you have to do it properly because the next generation is the strength and the future of this nation. And if you teach them right, you teach them properly, that makes Vietnam stronger from the inside out. However, if you keep going along with the status quo of teaching them poorly using people who can't speak English at all, such as people from Russia, people from Ukraine, I've actually heard teachers like that. And yeah, I go ahead and cite that as an example, teachers from Russia and Ukraine. Reason why I say that is because that most English centers here in Vietnam will only hire you if you have a white face. They don't care exactly where you're from, just as long as you have a white face. Because of the fact that one of my friends who's African American, 19 years of teaching experience in China, Shanghai, he's taught in Mongolia. He knows like Mandarin Chinese, Russian, Mongolian, stuff like that. He knows a lot of different languages. And he was denied employment at an English center because he's black. And he's American just like me. Speaks English naturally and fluently just like me. Has like tons more teaching experience than I do. And is great with kids. Denied a job because he's not white. That's the other problem I have with teaching English here in Vietnam is the fact that many English centers think that white skin equals native speaker, and that's just not true. Now, the other thing that they use here in Vietnam to divide teachers is that native, non native speaker thing. And I ask, why? Because, yeah, I speak English naturally. I come from the US and I do an okay, passable job of teaching English. I know I'm not the best. I've actually met teachers just like my friend that I just mentioned who are a lot better than I am. But I do an adequate job of teaching English. But, anyways, I've actually met non native speakers who speak just like I do, who are great at teaching English. So, why are they paid less than someone who has white skin? Why? People will say, oh, well, it's the parent's preference, it's the center's preference, blah, blah, blah. No, that's called discrimination. That's also against the law. Yeah. Article 3, Clause 8, which is combined with Article 8, Clause 2 of the 2019 Labor Code of Vietnam. Now, Article 8, Clause 2 of the Labor Code of Vietnam specifically no, wait, Article 8, Clause 1, I think it was, yeah, that's what it is. Article 8, Clause 1, when combined with Article 3, Clause 8 of the Labor Code, specifically prohibits discrimination in the workforce. This includes things like religion, skin tone, nationality, marital status, HIV infection status, family responsibility, all that stuff. And these English centers are still allowed to discriminate. Now, here's the thing. With teaching English here in Vietnam, yeah, you have the native and non-native speaker thing. But what if that went away? What if it went away? Take this for example. Someday, I want to go ahead and start my own English center. If I ever get the money to do that, that's exactly what I want to do. And what I do is simple. I have two people in front of me. One's a native speaker, one's a non-native speaker. I'm not going to mention race, age, or anything like that. Just one native speaker, one non-native speaker. Both of them have the exact same experience. Both of them have the exact same qualifications. Now, normally, any other English center would pay the native speaker maybe about, we'll say 500,000 an hour. And then they'll turn around and pay the non-native speaker 300,000 an hour, even though both have the exact same qualifications, experience, and everything else. So, what I propose is this. Why not pay them both equally the exact same wage? Why not? English centers can afford to do this. They just don't want to because they want to go ahead and maintain their profitability as long as possible. See, it's common sense that if you have a happy worker means more profit. You see, if you have a happy workers equal more profit. More profit equals, more benefits and more incentives after everything else has already been paid off. So if you give your workers more happiness, they in turn will give you more productivity, which will give you more profit, which in turn will go ahead and give more benefits and things like that in the future. It's a recurring good cycle. That's what it's supposed to be. You invest in your employees, they in turn will invest in you. And that's what I would do with this English center. I would pay both native and non-native speakers who are properly qualified at least 500,000 dong each per hour. Now, what I would do to make it even is that I think if I remember my math rightly, I think it's about 540,000 dong an hour. It's a little bit on the high side considering current trends, but I think it's like 480 to 540,000 dong an hour if I remember my math rightly. 480,000 dong an hour equals I think 8,000 dong per minute, and essentially a permanent rate is actually better for you because the fact this way the English centers can't go ahead and round your salary down to where they can try and steal more money. That's why they want to give you 500, like 450 or something like that, some odd number, so that they can round your hours down. Okay, think of it like this. You go ahead and get, say, I don't know, 20.33 hours. All right. Now, normally, if you go ahead and get your, okay, I'm going to go ahead and do this like this since I'm already having my computer. A little quick math for you and show you exactly what I'm talking about here. Calculator and wait for it to load. Load up. Okay, there we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Got it. All right, here we go. All right, so here we go. Now, calculator. All right, now if you have, say, 20.33 minutes times, say, I don't know, 480,000 dong an hour, which is what we talked about earlier, that equals about 9,758,400 dong. Now, if you go ahead and do 8,000 dong per minute times 60, which actually does equal 480,000 dong. So if you do 8,000 dong per minute times 1,220 minutes, you go ahead and get 9,760,000 dong. Now, you're like, well, you're looking at a difference of only about, 1,600 dong. Why is 1,600 dong that important to you? Well, it's simple. That's my money. I earned it. So my advice to you would be simple. If you're going to go to an English center, tell them you want a rate that can be divided by 60, like 480,000 dong. I think the next one up is 540,000 dong. Let me see. 540 divided by 60 equals, 9,000 even. Okay, so the next one up is 540,000 dong. So 480, 540, and then 600,000 dong. So 8, 9, and 10,000 dong per minute. So if you go ahead and get that per minute rate, that's actually better. Now they only pay per hour. All English centers only pay per hour. That's perfectly fine. I don't care. But tell them you want a salary like I said, 480,000 dong, 540,000 dong, 600,000 dong. They ask you why you want that specifically. You tell them that because of the fact it busts up into a permanent rate. So this way you can tabulate your minutes exactly. You know exactly how much you're getting every week. This way, the accountant can't steal from you. Your English center can't steal from you. You know exactly how much you're getting. You can actually do your finances properly for once. The only variable is your English center and whether or not they're actually going to let you work the minutes they gave you that week or whether or not they're going to take them back from you for some reason. Yeah, they done that to me too. Well, so we covered all that. Let's see, what else are we thinking of? Okay, so the last English center I ever worked for before I decided to call it quits for good. Well, this English center, and again, if you're watching, you know who you are. I'm not going to say names, but if you're watching, you know who you are. This English center gave me a school in District 11 where the schedule kept rotating every week, every 2 weeks. It kept rotating. The classes kept changing, students kept changing, and I got tired because at first, when I got to this one school, because I actually worked 3 total schools for this English center, and the first school was where they kept doing the constantly rotating schedule, and that was really starting to irritate me to no end because here I am struggling to go ahead and put together a lesson plan, and because I wrote out lesson plan for the whole week for all my classes, and then when the schedule changed, I have to go back through, redo everything, take out audio files, add in audio files, skip audio files, go ahead and put in all this, that, and the other because I actually have a tablet that I use also, so it'd be a lot easier for me to do my job. Beginning of this, I went ahead and used my big brown speaker to help me in the classroom. Ha! That didn't work for too long because the teacher started complaining and saying that the speaker was too loud, even though in their classrooms they use full blown PA systems. Yeah, these teachers are using full blown PA systems in their classroom and they're getting upset because I'm using a small brown speaker at full volume to try and talk to a bunch of kids that don't know how to be quiet while I'm trying to teach a lesson, having a TA that don't know how to do their job. Yeah, I had a lot of TAs that didn't know how to do their job. Now, there were a few TAs that were actually great at their job, and I found it to be real nice working for them. Working for them, working with them, and everything like that is, I found it great. The problem was the fact that how do I put this? It was the constantly rotating schedule that was getting to be stressful. And then if that wasn't bad enough, the fact that at first I had nothing but good classes, good students, it was a breeze. But then after that, I noticed that they started changing the classes and I started getting more and more and more bad students to where finally it was like all my classes were just bad students. And I came home always in a mood every single day after that. And I hated it. No matter how many times I asked for help, no matter how many times I asked for them to switch classes, no matter how many times I asked for them to take classes away because the students were acting too terribly, they wouldn't do anything. I'd ask the supervisor for help because the students were being so disruptive that I couldn't teach the class. Oh, well, just take down their names and we'll deal with them after class. No, they're not going to deal with those kids. They're basically telling me that they're going to ignore it and blah, blah, blah. Ish. Well, the other thing beyond that was the fact that it was just starting to become terrible because I kept reminding them of their obligations under the laws, and they kept wanting to act like that they didn't have to obey the laws. So it just got to the point where I actually went ahead and sat down during break this last year so I could go ahead, like in late December this last year, 2022. I actually sat down and I went through my contract, my employment contract with this English Center. I actually sat down and went through it. And I discovered so many labor code violations in just the contract alone that I'm actually surprised they're still in business. I asked him several times, I need to speak with your director. I need to speak with your board of directors. I need to speak with the big boss. I need to speak with people about this. This needs to be corrected. No, no, no. We already took care of that. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, we'll think about implementing changes next semester and blah, blah, blah. And you know they're not going to do anything. You know they're not going to do anything. I kept pointing out all the problems with their contract about how it wasn't legal, how it's not legally enforceable. If they try to take an English teacher to court over this, they will lose. They didn't want to listen to me at all. So I'm like, all right, well, you guys want to play it like that? We'll just go ahead and I'll pick up my final check, and then that's that. So that's what happened. I pick up my final check, and that was that. Now, the thing is I actually sat down with the lady in charge of hiring, and I told her right to her face that what she was doing was illegal. And I showed proof that what she was doing was illegal. The contract itself was not legally enforceable. And I think the reason why they haven't tried to come after me yet legally is because of the fact that I know that they can't do anything to me. I have enough evidence safely tucked away that if they did try to come after me for anything legal, all I have to do is just show that and it goes away. See, if you know the laws, you know how to protect yourself against corrupted centers. Corrupted centers are a blight on this country. And in my opinion, if we had excise control over English centers, we could go ahead and actually give random inspections to English centers to see if they are complying with the labor code or not. This would mean doing a deep evaluation of the English Center in general. This means doing an evaluation of their staff, their English teachers, their hiring practices, their employment contract, whether or not they're stealing money from teachers in the form of fines, whether or not they're penalizing teachers for, small offenses, stuff like that, whether or not they make the teachers wear masks. Yep, that's another big one, because that school that I talked about where the students like to fight and bring knives to school and stuff like that, that was the school where I was specifically told that all teachers have to wear masks. So I wore a mask. Well, when you have a 20-something Russian guy who thinks he's Mr. Stuff, remember, we're not allowed to use foul language on YouTube. So this Russian guy who thinks he's Mr. Stuff goes ahead and decides not to wear a mask. And no matter how many times I told him, hey, we both work for the same company. I know you work for the same company I do. Put a mask on. And then he starts going off about how it's not real and this and that and how it's just the flu and blah, blah, blah. And I just went ahead and looked at him in disbelief, like, how can you do this? How can you teach English and not care about the health and safety of your students? Why do you care more about your personal vanity than your students learning? So this guy, he starts going off on me and everything like that. And he threatens to beat me up. Hold up. Mm. So he threatens to beat me up in front of four teachers. Four teachers. And you know what? Nothing happened to him. I even reported him, threatened to call the cops and everything. You know what? Nothing happened to him. In America, where I'm from, if you threaten to beat someone up, you go to jail. Here in Vietnam, if you're cute, young, and single and you threaten to beat someone up, nothing happens to you. And that's how I knew that one English center, I shouldn't work for them anymore, because if they operate like a dating agency, that means they're not serious about you at all. Well, okay, moving on. So, as I mentioned earlier, if you go ahead and learn how to protect yourself, you can protect yourself against bad English centers. And if we were to do random inspections of these English centers, we'd find out which ones are compliant and which ones aren't. And if the ones that are compliant, they treat their staff nicely, and, their uh, employment contract follows the laws and everything like that, then there's no problem. However, if they break any labor codes, then they would have to go ahead and face a period to fix it. If they don't fix it, then they go ahead and have to shut down, because of the fact that terrible English centers are what's bringing down the quality of English teaching here in Vietnam, and that needs to stop. So if you're a corrupted English center and you're watching this, just remember, there are more people like me in Vietnam than you realize, because I am teaching them myself about their rights under the labor code of Vietnam. So when you have teachers that come to you and say that I have rights, That's because of me. And that's the reason why I show my face to you. Just wearing my glasses, no disguises or anything like that. So you can see for yourself that, yeah, I am real. Yes, I'm a foreigner. Yes, I come from the United States. Yes, I know my rights under the labor laws. And no, you're not going to steal from me. Not anymore. I quit teaching English entirely because of the how corrupted and rotten the system is. That's the reason why I work on YouTube now, because there's nothing else for me to do. Here in Vietnam, if you don't have a master's degree or higher, you're essentially condemned to be an English teacher. You're not allowed to do anything else. You're not allowed to be anything else. Just an English teacher. That's it. Now, I have college trade certificates, which are good enough to teach English here in Vietnam. But unfortunately, when businesses keep screaming bachelors, 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 you can't do nothing. So, and it's also the fact that since I'm married, I don't need a work permit or a TRC card either, but they don't care. Bachelors, bachelors, bachelors. So that's the reason why I work on YouTube now. Now, here's the thing. Like I said earlier about the labor code, I will go ahead and discuss that in detail. Like, I'm going to discuss the entire thing in a separate series later on. But I can tell you this, that my experiences here in Vietnam, as far as teaching English goes, if it could be summed up, it would be just downright terrible. Because, yeah, the pay is great. The pay is fantastic. It's more than what a local citizen would get. You make on par the same teaching English as a CEO would of a major company here in Vietnam, minus the perks and benefits and stuff like that. But the problem is the fact that you get so much stress attached to it, especially if you're working for a corrupted center. You have so much stress attached to it. You have to worry about bad students. You have to worry about your TA not working for you at all, especially if she's, looking for single and looking English teacher. And if you're married, that she's not going to do anything. Yeah, that's happened to me too. TAs are so happy and so willing to work with me the first day we meet. Then the next day after that, when I make it very clear that I'm very happily married and I'm not looking for anything else on the side, that they're very unwilling to work with me the next day to the point where they are visibly checking out Facebook and YouTube and things like that, sleeping, eating, not doing their jobs, things like that. So, yeah. So essentially, I learned my rights, so like I said, I wouldn't have to go ahead and be taken advantage of ever again. All right, well, let's see. What else can I talk about? So yeah, I went over the fact that I quit teaching English because the whole system was completely corrupted. And if I had to offer any advice to new teachers, it would be this. Do not come here unless you have all your paperwork, all of it. If you do not have all of your paperwork, don't bother coming over here because the government will find you and they will kick you out. And they'll also attach a do not return order because you tried to work on bad papers. So come over here, but only if you have all your paperwork and it's all been attested, legalized, apostilled, whatever you need to do to certify your paperwork. Make sure everything is done before you come over here because it'll be a lot less hassle and a lot less headache for you to get a work permit later on. Only trust legitimate centers that offer to pay 100% of your work permit and TRC fees. If they do not offer to pay for it, don't work for them because that means they want to steal from you. Don't accept anything less than $600,000 an hour because of the fact that I've noticed here recently that the salaries keep getting lower and lower and lower. Even after COVID, salaries are getting lower and lower and lower, but qualified teachers are also becoming less and less and less. So they're actually paying now, the corrupted centers are literally paying for anyone to come in to teach English. Bagpackers, tourists, they don't care. They just want somebody in there to teach English because of how rare real professional English teachers are. Yeah, real professional English teachers are extremely hard to find nowadays. But unfortunately, centers don't want to pay us what we're worth. So if they don't offer to pay 100% work permit TRC fees, if they don't offer at least $600,000 an hour, and they don't offer to give you benefits as described by law, such as PTO, THO, like paid time off, paid holidays off, annual leave, things like that. If they're not willing to give you that, walk away. Just walk away. And again, if you're a corrupted English center and you're watching this and you're telling me that I'm giving bad advice, no, I'm not. It's actually in the labor code. You can look it up yourself. Article 151, Clause 3 specifically says that foreigners shall be protected and shall obey the labor code of Vietnam unless prescribed by treaties to which Vietnam is a signatory. Article 127, Clause 2 specifically states that you cannot use fines as a form of punishment in the workplace. Article 11, Clause 2 specifically states that employees shall not pay any employment cost. Any employment cost. That means they don't pay for work permits, they don't pay for TRC, they don't pay for any of that. Now, some companies will say things like, oh, well, you have to give us notice and blah, blah, blah before you leave. That's actually true. If your contract is between, say, 12 to 36 months, which most contracts are, you must give a written notice. It just says notice, but you should give a handwritten notice of at least 30 days before you intend to leave. Now, if your boss manages to replace you before your 30 days is up, then your boss must compensate you up to the 30 days. For example, if you give your 30 days notice and say a week later they give you a replacement, then they must also compensate you for the other 3 weeks if they don't want you to work there anymore. Now, you can quit suddenly, but only under certain conditions. If you're being abused, mistreated, if you're not paid on time, if you find out your employer lied to you about your job working conditions and things like that, yes, you can quit without notice and it is perfectly legal. Again, check the labor code. I actually run a group on Zalo that teaches people their rights under the labor code. And unfortunately for me, well, it's basically a ghost town. There's like 45 people there, but only 2 or 3 actually speak. I'll go ahead and put the link to the Zalo chat group in the description. Also, since it's already 46 minutes in and I'm starting to get a little tired, I'm going to go ahead and say this. If you want to tip me, I do accept cash, but it must be in Vietnamese dong only, as that's what my bank accepts. So if you want to tip me, let me know in the comments, and I will be more than happy to let you know how to tip me. If you want to tip me with goods such as electronics, food, stuff like that, that's great. I'll take that too. Again, let me know in the comments that you want to send me a tip, and I will send you an address as to where you can send it to. Now, with me, what I want to do on this channel, like I said before, is just give advice from my point of view on things, give stories, you know, basically just be myself for the world to see. That's it. That's the reason why I'm wearing a tank top, because I don't care. Now, I'll wear something decent from time to time if I feel like it, but most of the time I'll just wear what I want, because the fact that I feel like I have a lot to say, it's just I still have to find my audience. So, anywho, I'm going to go ahead and, like I said, give that link for the Zalo chat group. So if you're on Zalo, you can join up. And another thing with that Zalo chat group, it's not a job board. So please do not post job advertisements or else you will get kicked out. Also, here on YouTube, please keep your comments friendly and appropriate for YouTube. If not, they will get taken down and I will take them down myself. I will keep up comments that are disparaging of me as long as you actually have proof of what you're saying. You can't just sling insults at me and not have any proof. So anywho, that's what I'm going to go ahead and say. It looks like I've already burned up about half my allotted time. So I'm going to go ahead and say, I hope I gave you guys and gals a lot to think about tonight. I'm going to go ahead and be releasing more videos from time to time, product reviews and such. But I will go ahead and say this as my final thought for the end of this particular video. It's this. I want the profession of English teaching in Vietnam to become better. But the only way to do that is to get rid of these evil and corrupted centers. Because when we do this, we will raise the standards, we raise the quality. We get the teachers that we want from all over the world, but we get the teachers that we want that are properly qualified to do the job. Doesn't matter that they're male or female. Doesn't matter that they're from the United States or Africa. All that matters is that they are very highly qualified and they can teach English. That's the future that I look forward to. How about you? Please make sure to like, comment on this video, share, and subscribe. Thank you, and enjoy your evening.